My wife cheated with her boss, we lost our family home to foreclosure, and now she's suing me for $500,000 over a fake prenup I never signed. I feel like my entire life has turned into a nightmare. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to get blindsided like this. My wife Emily always seemed like the perfect girl, smart, beautiful, ambitious. We had a good life, or so I thought. We owned a nice house, had a steady income, and I was starting to think maybe we were heading towards something permanent. But then, out of nowhere, everything started falling apart. At first, it was little things, missing money here and there, her being more distant, avoiding my questions. I chalked it up to stress, work, or maybe just her being tired. I never imagined she was cheating on me with her boss, Jason. That came out of nowhere like a punch to the gut, and I still can't believe I didn't see it coming. It all started when I noticed her acting weird about her phone. She was secretive, always keeping it close, hiding texts. I'd catch her glancing at her screen when she thought I wasn't looking, and there were moments I saw her typing fast, then deleting. She'd get defensive if I asked about her phone, saying it was just work stuff or her friends. But I knew something was off. Then, one night, I decided to check her messages when she went to the store. I wasn't snooping, just wanted to see if she was hiding something. That's when I saw it, a string of texts between her and Jason, full of flirtation, late-night plans, and references to meeting up. My stomach dropped. I couldn't believe what I was reading. She was talking about how hot Jason was, how they should keep it quiet, and even about needing a break from the chaos at home. I saw enough to know she was cheating. My mind raced. I felt sick, betrayed, furious. How could she do this? After all we'd been through, losing our house to foreclosure, struggling just to keep afloat, I thought we had something real. Turns out she was just using me as a backup and Jason was her escape route. I was stunned. I've been so blind, so trusting. I felt like I'd been punched in the face and I couldn't breathe right. I didn't confront her immediately. I needed to think, to process what I'd seen, but I couldn't unsee it. Every time I looked at her, I saw that message thread in my mind, the way she called Jason babe and joked about how good sex with him must be. It was like a dagger twisting in my chest. I started noticing more signs, her late nights, her perfume smelling different, her phone always in her purse. I felt like I was losing my mind, questioning everything I thought I knew about her. The worst part, she kept lying, denying everything when I asked directly. She'd spin stories about how I was paranoid, insecure, or just imagining things. But I knew better. I had seen her truth with my own eyes. That moment was a turning point. I felt betrayed beyond words, but I also knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I had to decide what to do next. I was angry, hurt, and honestly scared. How do you even start over after something like this? I was aware that our financial situation was already fragile, losing the house, the mounting debts, and now this. It felt like my entire life was unraveling. I kept asking myself, can I forgive her, or is this the end? But deep down, I knew I had to take control of the situation before it destroyed me completely. I didn't want to be a fool anymore. I wanted answers and I wanted justice. I just didn't know how far she'd go to keep her lies alive. The next few days were a whirlwind of chaos. I couldn't focus on anything else. Every minute was consumed by the betrayal I'd uncovered. I stayed up late, going over the texts, trying to make sense of it all. The more I thought about Emily's lies, the more I realized how deeply she'd lied to my face for months. She'd been so convincing, acting like everything was normal, like she loved me. But behind the scenes, she was planning her escape, probably with Jason, and I was just too blind to see it. I knew. I had to confront her again, face her head on. I waited until she came home from work that evening, trying to keep my voice steady. When she walked through the door, she looked tired, but there was something else, an edge to her. She knew I was upset, I could tell. I didn't waste time. I pulled out the phone with the messages on the screen and asked, "What's this, Emily? Care to explain why you're texting Jason like this?" Her face froze for a split second, then she rolled her eyes and let out a loud sigh. "Oh, come on," she snapped. "That's just work stuff. You're overreacting. You always jump to conclusions. You're so paranoid, it's exhausting." My blood boiled. That's not work stuff, Emily, that's you cheating on me. I saw the messages, the late-night plans, the flirtation, the babe stuff. How long has this been going on? She scoffed, crossing her arms. You're crazy. Maybe I've been stressed and Jason's been there for me. Maybe I needed someone to talk to. It doesn't mean I want to leave you or cheat. You're being ridiculous. I couldn't believe her lies. She was gaslighting me, twisting everything. I felt like I was losing my grip on reality. I told her I'd seen enough, that I wasn't going to pretend anymore. I told her I was done with her lies and that I was leaving for a while to think. She just looked at me with that bitchy smirk, like she thought she had won, like she was untouchable. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything. The house we lost, the money we borrowed, the dreams we had. All gone now. My mind kept circling back to the fact that she'd been lying to me all along, that she'd been sneaking around with her boss while I was trying to keep our family afloat. I felt humiliated, angry, and utterly betrayed. But more than anything, I was hurt. Deep down, I'd always believed in her, in us. Now, I wasn't sure I even knew who she was anymore. The next day, I started to piece together what I needed to do. I knew I couldn't stay in this marriage with her anymore. Not after this. I had to protect myself, especially financially. She was already suing me over a fake prenup she claimed I signed, which I never did. That was a whole other mess. She had lawyers now, and I was left scrambling for legal advice. But I knew one thing: I wasn't going to let her ruin me completely. I'd fight back, and I'd make sure she paid for the pain she caused. I decided I'd gather evidence, document everything: her lies, her cheating, her financial manipulations. I couldn't trust her anymore. I'd also start looking into how to protect what little I still had left. The house was gone, but I had some savings, and I'd need to figure out how to get through this without ending up completely broke. It was clear Emily was planning her next move, and I had to be ready. I felt a mix of dread and determination. This wasn't going to be easy, but I owed it to myself to fight for some kind of justice. I just didn't know how far she'd go or what she'd try next. Over the next few days, I threw myself into damage control. I started talking to a lawyer, someone who specialized in divorce and family law, and I also began digging into her financials. I wanted to know exactly what she'd been hiding, especially since she'd been acting so secretive about money lately. It wasn't just the affair. I suspected she'd been siphoning off funds, maybe even trying to hide assets because of the foreclosure mess and her legal threats. One thing that really hit me hard was the fake prenup she was trying to use against me. I never signed any prenup, but she had some lawyer concocting a story, claiming I'd agreed to it years ago. She kept saying I was crazy, that I had signed it when I was drunk or high or something. It was a lie, and I knew it. I found out she'd been meeting with her lawyer behind my back, drafting documents, trying to set me up. That thought made me furious. She was trying to manipulate the entire situation, and I couldn't let her get away with it. I also found out that she'd been secretly meeting with Jason at a fancy hotel. Of course, she denied it when I confronted her, but I had proof now. I'd installed a hidden app on her phone, just in case, and I had logs of her location data that confirmed she'd been there more than once. The worst part was realizing how much she lied to my face. She'd been telling me she was working late, going out with friends, doing everything to cover her tracks. Meanwhile, she was planning her escape with Jason, and she was trying to make it look like I was the one causing all the problems. I couldn't believe how quickly my entire life was falling apart. We had our problems, sure, but I never thought it would come to this. Losing our house, fighting over a fake prenup, discovering she was cheating. Everything felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and honestly scared. Not just for myself, but for what was coming next. I knew she was capable of anything now, especially since she'd become so hostile and bitchy when I pressed her about the affair. She'd always been good at lying, but now I could see the cracks in her facade. I made a decision that day. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. I was going to fight for everything I deserved. I'd protect what little I had left and expose her lies publicly if I had to. I started drafting a plan to counter her legal moves, to challenge the prenup she was trying to push through, and to uncover whatever else she was hiding. I also began to think about how I could get her out of my life entirely, emotionally and financially. I knew I needed to cut her off, no matter how much it would hurt. In the meantime, I kept my emotions in check. I was angry, yes, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I've been so blind for so long, trusting her blindly, believing in the future we'd built. Now I saw everything for what it was, a house of cards ready to collapse. I had to be smart, patient, and ruthless if I wanted to come out of this intact. I knew she was planning her next move, probably trying to drain me financially, or even trying to get full custody of the kids if she thought she could spin it that way. But I wasn't going down without a fight. Not anymore. Not after everything she'd done. I had to protect myself, my reputation, and whatever dignity I had left. The legal battles started moving fast after that. I hired a good lawyer, someone sharp, no nonsense, and we began digging into her financial records, which she'd been trying to hide. Turns out, she'd been funneling money into some secret accounts, probably to prepare for her big exit with Jason. I found wire transfers, hidden credit cards, even some offshore accounts. It was clear she'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. All the while, she kept insisting she was innocent, calling me paranoid and accusing me of trying to sabotage her. The more she lied, the more determined I became to get to the truth. She fought dirty, too. She brought up the fake prenup, claiming I'd signed it years ago under duress or that I'd been drunk. Her lawyer even tried to argue that I had no claim to anything because of that document, which was a blatant lie. I never signed anything like that. I had a copy of the original, and it was blank. No signatures, no dates, nothing. But she was relentless, trying to spin it to her advantage. Meanwhile, she kept up her bitchy attitude, throwing insults, calling me insecure, jealous, and crazy. It was just her way of deflecting, I suppose, trying to make me look like the villain while she was the one sneaking around behind my back. Things really escalated when I found out she'd been secretly seeing Jason at a hotel the night before she told me she was working late. I had her location logs, and her phone GPS confirmed she was at the Hilton downtown. I confronted her about it, and she denied everything, acting like I was just paranoid. But I had the proof. That's when she snapped at me, calling me possessive and controlling. She said I was jealous because Jason is so much better in bed, which made my blood boil. I felt like I was losing my mind. This wasn't just betrayal. It was a full-on attack on everything I believed in. The financial strain was mounting, too. I was paying legal fees, trying to keep up with her lawyers who were pushing her narrative that I was a deadbeat, that I'd abandoned her, that I was a danger to the family. Meanwhile, she was plotting her escape, trying to get half of everything, including the house I had worked my ass off for. I knew she was trying to use the fake prenup as leverage, but I also knew I had the law on my side. I kept telling myself to stay strong, to not let her manipulate me. This was war, and I had to be smarter, more strategic and colder than she was. One thing that kept me going was the realization that I wasn't just fighting for money or the house. I was fighting to save what little dignity I had left. The betrayal cut so deep. I kept asking myself how she could do this, how she could lie so effortlessly. I'd never seen her like this before, bitchy, manipulative, completely unrecognizable. Honestly, I felt like I was dealing with a different person. I started to question everything about our relationship, about who she really was. It was heartbreaking, but I knew I had to focus. Every day was a new fight, and I couldn't afford to let my guard down. As the months went on, I started to see the pattern. Her trying to drain me financially, her attempts to manipulate the legal system, her lies about everything. But I was ready. I had evidence now, enough to challenge her claims and expose her for the fraud she was. I wasn't going to let her walk away with half my life's work, especially after she'd betrayed me so badly. I'd come too far to back down now. This wasn't just about money. It was about standing up for myself, about refusing to be the victim of her lies and schemes. I knew she'd keep fighting, but I was prepared to fight even harder. I just hoped I could hold it together long enough to see this through. The court dates came faster than I expected, and by then I was exhausted but determined. I had stacks of evidence, texts, email exchanges, bank statements, GPS logs. I had a timeline that proved she'd been planning her escape for months. Her lawyer tried every trick in the book, questions designed to trip me up, false accusations, attempts to discredit my character. But I stayed calm, focused, and kept my evidence organized. I knew that if I was going to win, I had to be meticulous. Emily's attitude only got worse. She became more hostile, more bitchy, throwing insults and lying outright in court. She claimed I was an unfit husband, that I was emotionally abusive, that I was trying to manipulate the kids, even though I'd been the one fighting to keep the family together. She insisted she was the victim, that I'd abandoned her and the house, that I was trying to ruin her reputation. Meanwhile, her own lies kept unraveling. Her story about the prenup was exposed as a complete fabrication. No signatures, no legal standing. Her attempts to hide her affair with Jason were laid bare by the GPS logs and bank transfers. The most shocking moment came when her lawyer tried to argue that I was a danger to her and the kids, citing the evidence of her affair and her financial secrets. I sat there, listening to her spin her web of lies, feeling a strange mixture of rage and sadness. I'd loved her once. I'd trusted her with everything. But now I saw her for what she really was, a manipulative, selfish woman who'd thrown everything away for a quick escape. I realized I had to accept that our marriage was over, that I couldn't fix this, not with her lying and scheming the way she was. When the judge finally ruled, it was a relief, though not a happy one. She was ordered to pay back the money she'd stolen, and her claims on the house were dismissed. But the damage was done. She still tried to sue me for $500,000 over that fake prenup, claiming I'd signed it and that I was trying to cheat her out of her rights. I knew I had the evidence to fight that too. I felt a strange sense of closure, knowing I'd done everything I could to stand up for myself. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal, how someone I loved could turn into this cold, manipulative person. The aftermath was brutal. She moved out, taking what little she could, leaving me to pick up the pieces. I was left with a mountain of debt, a shattered trust, and a sense of loss I couldn't quite explain. I'd lost our home, our family, and the future I'd envisioned. But I also realized something important: I'd survived. I'd stood my ground, fought back, and exposed her lies. That gave me a strange kind of strength, even if it didn't erase the pain. Now I'm trying to rebuild my life. I've started therapy, trying to process everything that happened, and I've begun to focus on myself again. I know I'll never forget what she did, but I also know I can move forward. The lesson I learned, hard as it was, is that trust is fragile, and sometimes the people closest to you can hurt you the most. But no matter how deep the betrayal, you can find a way out. You just have to be willing to fight for it. And that's what I intend to do. Looking back now, I realize how much I underestimated the depth of her betrayal. I trusted Emily with everything: my heart, my future, even our financial security, and she repaid that trust with lies, deceit, and betrayal. The pain was overwhelming at first. I felt like I'd been sucker punched, like the ground had shifted beneath my feet. But over time, I learned a hard truth. No matter how much someone hurts you, you have to find a way to pick yourself up, to rebuild your sense of self and your life. Living through this chaos taught me a lot. I learned that sometimes the people closest to you can turn out to be the biggest enemies, that money and trust are fragile, and that the most dangerous lies are the ones hidden behind a smile. I also learned the importance of standing up for yourself, even when it feels impossible. I could have just rolled over and let her walk all over me, but instead I fought for what was rightfully mine. I fought to clear my name, to expose her lies, and to protect what little dignity I had left. Now I'm slowly moving forward. I've cut ties with her completely. No more calls, no more texts, no more pretending. I've started to rebuild my credit, pay off some debts, and focus on my own happiness. I've realized that life isn't about clinging to what's gone, but about moving forward even when it hurts. I still feel the sting of betrayal every now and then, but I think I've grown stronger because of it. I know who I am now, someone who can survive even the worst storms. The biggest lesson I want to share is this: trust is precious, but it's also vulnerable. You have to protect yourself, be cautious, and never ignore the signs when something feels off. If I could go back, I'd tell myself to be more skeptical, more aware. But I also know that I can't change the past. All I can do is learn from it. To anyone out there going through something similar, whether it's betrayal, financial ruin, or just feeling lost, I want you to know you're not alone. It's okay to feel broken, to cry, to be angry. But don't let that anger consume you. Use it as fuel to rebuild, to fight for your future. Because in the end, the only person who can truly save you is yourself. And if I've learned anything, it's that resilience is a choice. I chose to fight, and I'm glad I did.